missed that. I did reset the bots. I did change our title. In the midst of all this stuff. I also linked our Twitch account to OBS. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try, now that I have the factory reset on the PC, to install Streamlabs and link Heresy and Hearsay separately there, so I don't have to like switch out keys every time I stream. I'll just use 2 different streaming softwares. I don't have much on this machine, so I should have plenty of room as long as Streamlabs doesn't quits being an asshole to me.
That we are live, so I will key up on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look there, make sure it's going through. Oh, I have to pull up notes on... Where's 168? There it is. The show. Yeah, looks like live in today. Oh my gosh, I look awful. This is way too high res right now. Like, it's like the equivalent. Like, putting on makeup is kind of like turning down your resolution.
Dang it, I know what I should have done.
Okay, I will share us to the Book of Faces. Share in a page I manage. And I think I shared a bunch of stuff from our Twitter a week or so ago, just because I was doing it on the Mac, and I was like, oh, this machine's logged into. So I unintentionally put a bunch of BLM stuff or something out as us. I figured, they'll be okay with that.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
Okay, we are tweeted, we are Facebooked.
All right.
Shut off my ringer. Notifications went out, we are live. Not too shabby. Oh, so, yeah, you ready? I can play the theme, and you can hear it and start. Cool.
We got perspective, we got cuckoo, we got muscles, and then we effing rule. We are the Geek Grills, we are the Geek Grills, alright. We got the know-how, we got control, we got the knowledge, and we tell you how it rolls. We are the Geek Grills, we are the Geek Grills, alright. We are the Geek Grills, we are the Geek Grills, tonight. Hell yeah.
Hi, and welcome to episode 168 of Geek Grills. This is the Geek Grills podcast. It is supported primarily by our patrons at www.patreon.com/grills. I'm Ray. I'm joined by my awesome co-hosts, Ember and Linda. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about the centennial of the 19th Amendment. So, 100 years of women's suffrage. But before we do that, what have you girls been up to?
We'll go first? Sure. I have still been working on my Bulbasaur variations. I keep fiddling and tweaking the pattern as I go. So I don't have a completed one yet. Because I keep like stopping and going, I need to change the shape of that. And so there's still in pieces parts, so
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die!
ears.
Aww.
I mean, you saw his head last time, but I do have his body now. But what I did get done is, come here, you, a Totoro. So he turned out real cute, and I'm happy with that. I might fiddle with his ears, make them a little bit more standy uppy because they're a little flappy right now.
He looks very huggable.
Yes, it's made out of a blanket yarn, so it's very very soft. And then also this past weekend, I got just like a bug in my brain, and I was like, I'm gonna make myself a circle skirt, which then turned into I'm gonna make myself a skater dress.
Woot.
so I so I used a little it comes like right under the bust, and it's got little straps that like cross in the back and pockets. I have one pocket all the way sewn, the other pocket is still just pinned in, so I have to sew that. Um, but I used an old blanket that I don't use anymore. It was just been sitting languishing in the closet. So I pulled it out and cut it up. And I was just like, but it's a fleece blanket. So she's warm. She's this is a fall slash winter skater dress. I'm gonna wear it with some nice long sleeves and some yeah, nice skater dress. Some leggings because it goes down to about like right above my knee. But yeah, I put it on and I was, standing there going, "It's real cute. I'm warm. This is not a summer dress." But it is, yeah, it is like wearing. I mean, it's basically I'm wearing a fleece blanket, so there's that. Um, but it turned out real cute, and I like how the flowery pattern like turned out. So I'll be very summer in the middle of winter, I guess. I don't know. I
Be
make
warm.
weird clothing choices anyway, so it's fine. I am making it up as I go.
I
um
have a whole stash I haven't touched because I'm scared of it.
oh, don't
It's
be
sewing.
scared. And it's easy when you're making something for yourself because you can just like slap it on and be like, I need to tweak it this way to make it fit right. That's basically what I've been up to. Oh, I did forget. Matthew and I watched Black Christmas because we have a list now after we did that like 80s horror movie tribute, I guess. I'm not even sure what call it. We have like a list of old horror movies that we want to go back and rewatch or we haven't seen. So I had actually never seen the original Black Christmas from 79. I think it's 79. So we watched that and it's very 70s. But it's actually a pretty decent horror movie. I say that, and it's like the basis for a lot of the like horror tropes that you have nowadays. So can recommend if you're looking for an old horror movie to look at. So I think the next one we're gonna watch is Silver Bullet, Stephen King's Silver Bullet. So
Oh, I love that one. Might still have a VHS copy of it, actually.
yeah, I actually have never seen it. So we're gonna watch it.
Oh, it was so good. I loved it as a kid. So, and it was kind of freaky because it's not super graphic. It's not American Werewolf in London at that time, but for me, still as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yep. So that's basically what I've been up to.
Nice score.
Hmm.
cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
um, hey, 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 Ember. Um, I think you're muted on the stream. Let me double check.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
There you are.
Because I muted us from myself from when we did the intro.
It's okay. You're,
Okay, I can
think-
repeat myself. Fix it later.
yeah, I better repeat because I don't know if
I'm
yours
sure it is. I can see exactly where the problem is. Okay, so I found a dress this week for like $5.48 that is like super cute, like pinup bee style, black on top, and like a black and white polka dots with cherries on it on the bottom. And I snatched that up and it has pockets, and I'm super psyched. And I wore it out.
It's the goth version of the strawberry dress.
Kinda. And I wore it out. We went out Saturday and we went out to Winston-Salem to Foothills Brewery and stopped at Sheetz on the way. And I wore it with like these little snub nose shoes with little bows on them. And I've got fishnets that have like butterflies up the side. And I did my makeup and everything. And then I had my like sugar skull mask on. And I stopped at Sheetz to grab a Monster on the way. And as I was walking out, like the little crowd parted so I could go through. Everyone was being good about social distancing and all. And this young man calls out. And he's like, "You look very pretty today." And I just kind of like kept walking. He was like, "Ma'am?" And I just looked like he just wanted to make sure I knew he was talking to me.
Aww.
And I just like smiled and I said, "Thank you." And it was like, oh my God. That like made my week. I this random compliment from a stranger, and he wasn't being weird or creepy or anything. So, yay. Okay.
My grandmother used to live in Winston-Salem, actually.
Huh?
My grandmother used to live in Winston-Salem.
Oh, cool. It's a
Yeah.
nifty little town. Like, or bigger city than here, which makes a lot of things better. And Foothills makes my favorite porter. And they randled a porter and put chai and coffee in it. That was pretty epic. My assessment of it was, all right, I want this for breakfast, but if you bring it to me for breakfast, you should just come naked. So we made the spice rack, and Rob would burn rosemary and thyme all up one side that will be exposed to the kitchen. And then I couldn't figure out what to put on the front. We did some green, and then I ended up changing the middle to blue because we put "Who controls the spice controls the universe" on the front of the middle shelf. It has like lots of room for big bottles. Mounting it is going to be a whole nother challenge because the wall we're putting it on is plaster covered in melamine.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
As someone who has dealt with plaster walls before.
Oh. Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare, and it doesn't have a back, and we're probably gonna mount a board on the plaster and then glue the shelf onto it and tack it on. It's kind of all we can do. So what else? I taught my youngest son to use a sewing machine. I'm like super happy. I've been trying to get them to learn. Like, you should just let me show you this, right? No. That's fine. Come on. But when he went with me to deliver 20 masks and saw me get $120 from the people at the optical place, he's like, can you show me how to do that? Because he wants the Monster Hunter add-on thing, or what's the... there's this $40...
DLC.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm
Nothing like being game and food motivated, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But And he was really good. And this is the one
Oh,
who's on the
yeah.
spectrum and everything. He didn't have any meltdowns. Even have to rethread the machine when you do. You know how I melt down sometimes.
Sorry. If you hear me intermittently saying "ow" during this, it's because I'm trying to sew on the other pocket in the dress. I keep stabbing myself with a needle. Sorry, Amber, do continue.
That's okay. So yeah, that, and I got my memorial tattoo Thursday, and it turned out spot on. I'll probably put a picture in our show notes just because I've got a really good side by side of the lithograph it's based on and the tattoo, and it turned out just perfectly. And I'm a little weirded out though. This was done Thursday afternoon. It's Monday, and I have 2 teeny tiny little flakes. There has been no oozing, no scabbing, no peeling. It doesn't itch. It just, when it was being done, my whole arm swelled up because my immune system just did its damn thing and was freaking out. But it's just healed, like it's just there now, and I've never had such a quick, smooth healing, and it's all black. So I mean, normally they have to go so, deep with black. It's a little extra, trouble a bit. Nope. Even without the dermaplast, because it came off overnight. Gone.
And that's that.
Yeah. It's okay. I mean, the person it's a memorial of is pretty damn magical, and I think it's just magical. Like, when we were out yesterday, I was looking down, I was like, it still doesn't, it's not even peeling or anything. They're just like, it looks like glitter in it, like little sparkly bits.
It's watching out for you.
Yep. So what about you, Ray? What have you been up to?
Let's see. Our D&D game got pushed back to Saturday. So what I did do during that, because I have to do something during D&D, is I finally inked and then on Sunday colored my Tiefling Paladin.
Oh, she's cute.
She's really cute. I like how she turned out. I'm really proud of it.
Yes.
Which is why I've been like throwing it up everywhere on all my social media. Probably to the annoyance of a lot of people.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who needs to have like busy hands when like D&D is happening, because I have like a pile of yarn over here off camera that I just use during D&D.
Yeah, I just like to have something else to do. So that was fun. The game was great. We learned tragic backstories of some characters, so that was fun.
Always have to have the tragic backstories.
It was our warlock. Like he finally
of
came
course.
out as a warlock. And like
did he get XP for that?
No.
Okay.
We're Scott's running it. We just level up. We don't have XP for certain things. We just level up whenever story appropriate. But it was really good. He's like, I thought you guys were gonna have a big fight this thing, but I'm really glad you didn't, because that social dynamic interaction was really good. So, and then the other thing is I finished watching The Great, which is very loosely based off Catherine the Great, on Hulu, it's actually really cute and funny. I love his like historical, like vaguely historical drama. I like history.
Yeah.
So
I like historical drama and fiction.
And it annoyed me a little bit at first, because what they ended up doing was taking Peter the Third and Peter the Second and merging him into her Peter.
Oh, those are very different people.
They are. So the entire time he's talking about his father, Peter the Great, and I'm like, excuse me, sir.
You skipped over Peter.
That is incorrect. And I'm like, oh, F it. No, it says even the title loosely based on history. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna enjoy it. It's actually really funny. My historical ship hasn't sailed yet. It's fine. The one guy's dead, so I'm okay with that. It was her first bow after getting clearance that they can have other people, and I'm like, that one's not gonna last. So, and then I did watch the Orville finally. I got season 1 done, about halfway through season 2 today. So
Oh
was
wow!
off.
I still have never seen that.
It's good. It's not great, but it's good. Uh, Scott swears to me season 2 is better and less jokey. I'm like, it's not very
I
overly jokey. It's not the Family Guy. It's more.
well,
It's like a
the thing
slightly
is,
your next gen.
the thing is that it started out as almost like a parody, and then they realized that everybody loved it, and so they took themselves a little bit more seriously in season 2.
Yeah, like I just got to the 2-parter. Like I'm
Mhm.
almost done with the second part of a 2-parter mid-season arc that I'm not going to say anything more about. Other, it's very interesting. But yeah, like early on, I was griping to Scott. I'm like, how come in one episode they can regrow this man's leg, and in the next episode they don't have a cure for a hangover? This is humanity, and I know we would have figured out a hangover cure before we would have figured out how to regrow somebody's limb. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
I know where our priorities are. But overall, it's fine. I was just like, that's a little irksome, and
And it would have been invented by the Irish. Sorry.
someone.
I
That's
know.
okay. Thinking. But yeah, that's pretty much me. So I guess now it is time to move on to the topic. Dun, da, da, da.
Dun, dun,
So
dun. Votes for women.
I actually wrote like 5 pages. I wrote 2 of them and then got tired and just copy and pasted from Wikipedia for the last 3 pages of things I thought were noteworthy. And I know we're not going to touch on all of it, and that's perfectly fine.
That is a super lot of work.
It
I didn't
is.
read all your notes. I figured
nope.
I would, go on what I know and look at the wiki for the discussion. And I did watch the videos, though, and I will make sure to put those links in our notes for our listeners, because those were wildly entertaining.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
informative.
I adore Crash Course. Like I said, I'm a history nerd, and then I've been a Daily Show junkie since it came on in the '90s. And Dulce just going over women's suffrage, mwah, she's great. So,
Oh, and it
but
turns out I
yeah.
couldn't have looked at your notes if I wanted to, because I don't have access. So that's all you. Have fun.
Ooh, okay. Well,
It's okay. You can lead the discussion. That's why you're hosting.
yep. So yeah, the 19th Amendment, which prohibited the state and federal government to the ability to deny someone the right to vote based on their gender, was originally brought up to Congress way back in 1878, but of course didn't pass until 1919, and was finally ratified and certified on August 26, 1920. Da, 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 da. 100 years later, here we are, roughly, like 99 years and 363 days technically, because it's the 24th. We're close enough. It's 100 years. Celebrate, ladies.
Yay!
But sadly, this did not give all women the right to vote at the time. Due to a lot of things, a lot of other restrictions that I'm going to go on, it was mostly rich white women that were actually able to, starting in 1920, vote. Which is a shame, because many abolitionist leaders worked with women's suffrage and hoped that all people would have the ability to vote regardless of sex or race.
I saw some interesting stuff about that with the whole Susan B. Anthony stuff recently, and Trump is going to pardon her and everything, where people were going a little off the rails, I think, in saying she had taken on white supremacy notions in order to, like, prioritize it. Like, no, we don't have to worry about black women right now. Only white women should have the right to vote. But I mean, reading what she did and what she was going for, to me, I see it a little more as, she was just prioritizing doing one thing at a time. And having been in politics for a long time, like, I understand both sides of that very well. I've been so involved in the LGBT community and political processes there. And I feel like with other equal opportunity employment stuff and everything else, it's kind of like that same. Transgender folks keep getting, well, you wait your turn, and they feel thrown under the bus because when you need to get a law passed, people want to take the most likely route to get it passed stuff. And I kind of see it more like that kind of thing going on than I'm not going to be like, she was a white supremacist. That seems rather extreme for somebody who did all the hard work she did and worked alongside people of color to do it.
And then while going over this, it actually got me thinking, and I'm like, I don't actually remember going over much about like women history and like getting the vote in school.
Nope.
Uh,
I
like
didn't I didn't know who Susan B. Anthony was until like later on in high school. Like they didn't go over her or nothing in my school.
I got a lot of it in school, but she was from Rochester, right? Like, I grew up down the road. Like, she was local history for us.
see, my mom grew up in New York. I mentioned this to my mom when I talked to her today, and she's like, "Oh no, like we learned about it in New York, but she's like, maybe that's because of Seneca Falls and everything."
Yep, and that's where that convention took place. It was local history. It's like none of you know all the songs about building the canal, the Erie Canal either, I'm sure. And that's like a huge history of transportation in the United States and immigration and stuff, but we learned all that cuz it was local.
So I was going over it, and I'm like, yeah, I remember like learning some of this like independently, and I remember like watching Mary Poppins and not quite clicking in my head till years later that the mom is a suffragette.
Yeah.
Like she says it, but I'm like, as a kid, I'm like, I don't know what that is. Whatever, she's doing her thing. Something about voting, good for her.
Wow.
And
And maybe
then
they fell off of teaching it because of the age gap with us. Maybe they just don't teach it anymore. I'll ask my kids.
well, because it was weird. Like I vaguely remember, like, oh yeah, Woodrow Wilson signed into law, and then prohibition happened immediately after because of the hatchet lady, which we learned about the Mary Silver Hatchet going in and like pushing for prohibition and busting up kegs because apparently that was important. Georgia, Georgia.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like they didn't go into it at my school because they were like, "Oh, women can vote. Everyone knows women can vote. So why bother?" Or if it was just I don't know, just not written in that particular history book. Cuz we got I recall the like we got the large beats the, the large beats of history, American history. Uh yeah, I went to a very preppy school, so I'm not going to go into our schools. Just, we were missing some pages. Let's just put it that way.
When
Yeah.
I went to school, Cobb County had to put on a disclaimer that theory of evolution is just a theory. Like that's what was going on when I was in school. So
Wasn't that bad. We had a very robust science, but yeah, I looking back on the history that I learned could have been a little bit more inclusive, we'll say.
yeah, like honestly, the biggest like closest thing that I remember as a kid that kind of got me interested in like women's history was Leith's mentions of fictional advocate for women's rights in the episode of Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, which is season 3 of The Simpsons, which I grew up with. And like I knew that character that she talked about wasn't real because I'm like, I am sure I would have heard about a floor mop rebellion if that was true. And of course it wasn't. But I'm like, that's actually what kind of inspired me to start looking into like Susan B. Anthony and learning more. So, and just because 1920s happened and the vote was open up to all women in quotation marks, several states, mostly in the West, did give women the ability to vote and be elected prior to the 1920s. And because of that, Montana elected the first woman to the House of Representatives, Jennifer, excuse me, Jeanette Rankin in 1916, who was a progressive, and she voted. She's one of the people who voted against fighting in World War One, and was the first woman to vote for giving women the right to vote, which
Of course.
I thought was kind of neat. So I don't know if anybody else really wants to go into history because it's the Centennial. I've had different opportunities to listen to different webcasts and stuff go on about the history and how it started. Um, so I was gonna kind of just look at like what we've done in the 100 years.
Sure.
That sounds like a fun romp.
I mean, I understand. It made mention in one of the videos you posted about how they were still, even though technically women could vote, using things for the segregation, like you were talking about, with, and even for poorer folks, doing the literacy test stuff.
Yep.
And yikes, I was reading and watching a lot about, because I was studying John Lewis more recently for the other show, and I heard about a new literacy test in quotes that I hadn't heard of before, but you had to answer how many bubbles were in a bar of soap. Like I'd heard in the jelly bean one, I've heard all kinds of other bizarro tests, but one of the tests to pass for voting were how many bubbles are in a bar of soap, and the absurdity.
Oof. Ugh.
One yikes. No,
yeah.
that deserves multiple yikes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an all caps yikes.
Yeah.
All caps. But yeah, so starting in 1920s, women were not considered citizens in their own right and acquired citizenship of the nationality of their husbands when they were married. Like apparently this was enough of a thing that when my mom moved down to Georgia from New York, the credit card that was in her name was no longer in her name and suddenly became in my father's name because she just became an accessory to my dad, and therefore he had to be the one in charge of all the finances in the eyes of the bank in the 1970s when they moved down here.
This is something I get really irritated, and I know there are female friends who get really irritated that still happens. Like my name is on the deed, my name is on the mortgage, and if I want to meet with someone to get an estimate or renovate part of the house, contractors won't even meet with me unless we're both here. And that shit drives me nuts.
Nope. Your name's on there. It should be one or the other or both, but it shouldn't have to be mandatory both.
And I'm the CFO. I'm making these calls. Like, having to get his permission to, talk about anything on a joint account is irritating enough. But I mean, I understand in there's, maybe things aren't going well and I'm going to rob him blind. However, I run the household, I take care of the finances, and my word cannot be taken for these things all the goddamn time.
Yeah, so of course this, in addition to how we're still having to deal with some of these things, continue to make voting difficult, and some lost the ability to vote if their husbands were not considered naturalized. So if you married somebody who was a minority group or had immigrated over, uh, you would lose the ability to vote then because they weren't naturalized, which is total BS. There were still restrictions. Oh, go ahead.
The naturalization tests back in the day were just as ridiculous as the literacy tests.
Yep, and then there were still restrictions on voting due to literacy, moral character.
But even that sounds like the crackpot thing of hysteria, the hysteria disease, the being a woman disease.
Long residency requirements and poll taxes, which is literally a tax. If you wanted to vote, you had to pay. I'm just throwing my arms up in the air in frustration at this. So, of course, this impacted many immigrants, racial minority, and lower income women from still being able to participate. In fact, it wasn't until about the late 70s, like women had the ability, but no women didn't vote in mass until about the 1970s, 1980s, according to some article that I read on Wikipedia. I read so many articles today, guys. I'm sorry. And one of the articles said that, and I was like, that kind of makes sense. If you make it enough of a frustration, they're just gonna. So, so the reason for this supposedly was that politicians feared a united women voting bloc, and they were scared of what these newly empowered women would do.
They
So,
should be. They should be scared.
so what they did initially, like 1920 and 1923, was they like tried to placate women and vote in some things. And then after the presidential election of 1924, they saw that like, oh, women don't vote all for the same thing. They're individuals. Wow. Shocking. People are individuals. So then they stopped focusing on women's issues because they didn't need to cater to them at all. Grumble, grumble. Okay.
Well, given the show that women made early on, like during the World Wars, of realizing they were an economic factor to be dealt with and staging, even before they had the right to vote, they were staging boycotts successfully and having political impact. They could have figured it out then. But it took, a long time for politicians to come around and go, oh, but we could also appeal to women and win on stuff.
We get more votes. So, Alice Paul and the National Women's Party did not believe that the 19th Amendment alone would be enough to ensure men and women were treated equally. And in 1921, they announced plans to campaign for another amendment which would guarantee equal rights not limited to voting. First draft of the Equal Rights Amendment, I will continue to talk about this till the day I die, or until it's passed and not just ratified and then discovered to be too old to actually take an effect. I'm looking at you, Virginia, this year. ah,
Yeah, let's hope it gets actually passed first, okay?
yeah, it's currently ratified, but now they've decided it's too old to actually go through and do anything. But it was written by Paul and Crystal Eastman, and the first, what the heck? I don't know what that is. And the first name, the Lucretia Mort Amendment, stated no political, civil, or legal disabilities or inequalities on account of sex or on the account of marriage, unless applying equally to both sexes, shall exist within the United States or any territory subject to the jurisdiction therefore. So that was brought to Congress, but of course it didn't make it to the vote. And it's produced in every congressional session from 1921 to 1971, usually not making it out of committee. Sigh, government.
Question is why? It's like, excuse me.
People just keep taking their eye on the ball, off the ball.
Yeah,
I mean,
there was actually, I remember it was a documentary I watched on the 70s, because I think that was the last big push to try and get it ratified, and like women, they were scared it would disenfranchise work at home, like mothers who wanted to stay at home with their kids. Uh, they saw it as this is the working woman trying to force her agenda on those of us who want to be mothers. And I'm like, no, no, it's not. We just want equality. We just want all of us to be able to have a voice in the government.
You can be a stay-at-home mom.
It's cool.
It's cool.
it's a hard job too.
It's a hard job. Some people are good at it.
Some people are better at it than others. That's why they do that, and why some of them then also open daycare centers, like my
I
neighbor
just
growing
don't
up.
understand how. It's fine. Well, it's not fine, but
Obviously, it's not fine.
Fine. I just don't get it sometimes how people can spin something that it's like This is what it says. It says we want equality for everyone. How are you spinning that to being somebody wants to voice their opinions and agendas on you? Where does it say that?
It's not pie. More for us does not mean less for you.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is the area of where I just go into like notable firsts that have happened in the 100 years. So in 1922, Rebecca Latimer Felton from Georgia became the first woman to serve in the Senate. But her term was only 1 day because her replacement was due to an unexpected passing of her predecessor, Thomas E. Watson. And the governor of Georgia at the time selected Rebecca to hold the seat as a way to try and woo newly empowered female votes and also to select a candidate who would not be much of a competition during the special election. Walter George, who won this special election, actually allowed Rebecca to be sworn in for the 1 day before he took office the next. I just thought that was really weird and interesting. Then we have Florence Prague Khan, who's the first Jewish woman to serve uh, in the House of Representatives in 1925. This is because her husband had died and she took his seat and she served until 1937. After that, we have Haiti Caraway, became the first woman to win election and serve a full term to the Senate from Arkansas in 1932. She used a method of shushing babies during campaign stops to gather voter interest, and that kind of made me think of like that old cartoon of like politicians like
Kissing babies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think it's older than that, but it's like oh, wonder if that's okay. Let's see. Margaret Chase House was the first woman to serve in both the House and the Senate. She first served in the House and began serving in the Senate in 1949. She won her the race for the Senate. Began serving in the Senate in 1949. Yeah, I don't have when she started in the House. I'm sorry, that was bad. Unless that's a typo, which it might be because I was very tired at this point. Let's
You went down
see.
a rabbit hole.
I did a lot.
I like history time with Ray.
Right?
My dad would be so proud. Let's see. U.S. Representative Vera Buchanan died in 1955, making her the first woman in either chamber to die in office, which is a terrible first. But Vera, particularly, was focused on safe, affordable housing and food, knowing that these insecurities can have devastating impacts on families and their children. 1955. A lot of stuff doesn't feel like it's changed that much. Patsy Mink, an Asian American, entered the U.S. House of Representatives in 1965 as the first woman of color and Asian American woman in either chamber of Congress. She was the first East Asian American woman to seek the presidential nomination of the Democratic Party, and she ran in the 1992 election, entering the Oregon primary as an anti-war candidate. That would have been against the Vietnam, I think. During her term, she was focused on education and initiated a lawsuit which led to significant changes to presidential authority under the Freedom of Information Act in 1971. Nixon. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, and that would have been Vietnam. Yeah, because Korea's 50. I don't know why those two were those two are very different wars, and they get smushed in my head a lot, and I have to try and chop that up. Let's see.
It's amazing how some of these same arguments against equal rights are just the same thing from the 50s ad nauseum.
Yeah, it's like the more it's different, the more it's still the same. I mean,
Because, like, in the 80s and 90s, there's that whole superwoman concept that they were fighting against, like women working out of the home and how it's detrimental to families and blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. There was a huge push
the
against
nuclear
it.
family will fail. No.
No.
It's fine.
No.
So 1965, Voting Rights Act prohibited racial discrimination, finally. but voting manipulation was still a widespread issue, unfortunately, to limit minority voting. But the Voting Rights Act was signed in uh, only 1965. That was, gosh, that's just kind of frustrating. So Muriel Humphrey Brown was the first and only second lady to serve in the United States Senate. Her husband, Hubert Humphrey, was defeated in 1968 presidential election. Following his unexpected death in office, she was appointed by the governor of Minnesota in 1978 to take her husband's Senate seat. But she served less than a year. 1969, we have U.S. Representative Charlotte Reed became the first woman to wear pants in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Like gasp.
I'm like,
Shocking.
like pants is such a big deal still in the late 60s. Ah, okay. Shirley Chisholm entered the U.S. House of Representatives in 1969, and she was the first African American woman in either chamber of Congress. In the 1972 presidential election, became the first black candidate for a major party's nomination for president of the United States, and the first woman to run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. And throughout her time in Congress, she worked to improve opportunities for inner city residents, and she was a vocal opponent of the draft and supported spending increases for education, healthcare, and other social services, and reductions in military spending. We have finally hit the 70s. So in 1973, we have U.S. Representative Yvonne Brathwaite Burke became the first member of the U.S. House of Representatives to give birth while in office. She was also the first person to be granted maternity leave by the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives with the birth of her daughter Autumn. Just never came up, apparently. I mean, it would make sense. Still fighting to get in there.
Too busy to
1978,
get busy.
I guess. 1978, Nancy Kassebaum became the first woman ever elected to a full term in the Senate without having her husband previously served in Congress. Kassebaum voted in favor of the bill establishing Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a federal holiday and the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987, as well as to override President Reagan's veto. All right, I'm going to come clean because I'm going over a lot of firsts to women empowerment, and I am the first to admit that I don't have time to write a sentence about everybody. I tried to, but there's been a lot of women.
That's
and
a
I'm
lot.
also very, very much on the left. So if I read about you and found out that you were anti civil rights and kind of a anti humanity person, I kind of just didn't give you anything more than a tiny nod. And I admit that. So if this interests you, there are many. You can look up each and every one of these women. They do have more in depth on Wikipedia, but I am coming clean with my own bias on this.
Not necessarily fair and balanced. That's okay.
I
It's your
admit
platform.
this.
It's our platform. We're not journalists.
Like,
We
there
don't
was
have
one-
like no none of these people are running for office. We don't have to give them equal time. No one's
Yeah.
paying us shit.
So since 1971, there's always been at least one woman in the Senate, which is pretty cool. First woman elected to the Senate without any family connections was Paula Hawkins, elected in 1980. She's also the only woman elected to the U.S. Senate from Florida, and the second woman ever elected to the Senate from the South. But I'm also pretty sure that the girl from Georgia who served one day really doesn't count. The gym of the U.S. House of Representatives, with the exception of its swimming pool, first opened to women in 1985. The gym having previously been male only. The swimming pool opened to women in 2009. The pool
Wow.
having previously been male only. Like, I'm alive for these. Like, well, in the 80s, I wasn't aware. I was like 4 years old. But
The 2009 one, I'm like, wow, really?
yeah, that's kind of why I included it because I'm just like,
God. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the stupid, like, your skirt is too short, so you're making the boys not able to concentrate. That's what that,
Oh,
like,
that's another rant I will go on.
yeah.
The same school system that likes to tell people that they cannot enforce a mask rule are the same school system that I remember going and they had a teacher with a ruler that would measure the length of your skirt or shorts and inform you to call your parents to come bring you a change of clothes because they were too short. I have issues.
You were distracting the other students. Sorry, that was a tangent, but like the pool opening in 2009 to women, that's what that reminds me of. Can't be seen in your bathing suit, or you're gonna distract all the old crusty white men.
Well, it's a boys' club. It's a boys' club.
Yep. I have that quoted literally in just a few minutes. So officially in the 80s, because you can tell. Okay, and I also apologize if I'm butchering some of these names, just straight up. Barbara Vukanovich entered the U.S. House of Representatives in 1983 as the first Hispanic woman or Latin woman in either chamber of Congress. And in late 1990, Hawaii became the first state with a House delegation of all women of color. That's Patsy Minks that we talked about, and Pat Saiki. The trend of women in the Senate began to change in the wake of Clarence Thomas' Supreme Court nomination hearing and the subsequent election of the 103rd United States Congress in 1992 was dubbed the Year of Women, a thing that we will continue to randomly hear about for other years. Because apparently, anytime there is more than like 3 women elected to Congress, it's the Year of Women, which is fine. I just would like to see more
And
personally.
well, yeah, because it's disproportionate to the population in a pretty extreme way still. The barriers to entry for women in politics are, I can tell you firsthand, a little bit tricky.
I believe it's still like 70% male and like 20% females. I mean, 80, 90, or 80% male. It's still like about a 20 to 30% women.
Well, and this idea that women are not capable of leading is so pervasive in our culture. It's not just men saying it. I have seen and talked to women when Hillary was running that were just like, well, I just don't think a woman should, be president. And the demeanor of it, and I mean, the hysteria shit coming out of a woman's mouth. Like, we run this world. We run this mother. We run like the raising the children and the households and like the foundations of the entire society in so many ways. But not being trusted to lead is really oxymoronic to me. But women believe that too.
I like all I can think of is they've had it drilled in their head because I even remember like having a discussion. Somebody's like, "Well, what if it's her time of the month and she just goes crazy and hits the button?" I'm like, "Would you? If you were in the presidential house and you were having a bad day, would you just offhandedly hit the button to launch nukes? I seriously doubt it." Like,
I mean, I've had some serious PMS, but no, that's not gonna happen. And there's fail safes, and it's just so undermining the. No.
So for the Year of Women who were elected, it was Patty Murray of Washington, Carol Moseley Braun of Illinois, who was the first woman of color in the Senate, and she was also the first woman to defeat an incumbent Senate winning the 1992 Democratic primary over Alan Dixon. Dianne Feinstein, California, was the first woman to defeat an incumbent senator from a different party. And Barbara Boxer was also of California, uh, was also elected. And that's also the first time that we've had 2 representatives from the same state be women, which is kind of cool. Bathroom facilities for women in the Senate on the Senate chambers were first provided in 1992.
Holy shit!
Women were not allowed to wear pants on the Senate floor until 1993. All right. 1993.
Oh,
Senators
93.
Barbara.
Oh, you know what? That's really interesting to me because that was such a big damn deal about Hillary wearing pantsuits when Bill was elected.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's right in there in that time. And I
like,
didn't
it's
understand why. I was like, what do you even... Why is that a thing? Why are people giving her a shit about wearing pantsuits? And to realize it was that recent, that level of leadership. And she was just going to be first lady. And they were dissing her for pantsuits. I didn't... Oh, wow, that's really mind-blowing.
That's a lot more sense now. Yeah. So, yeah, specifically Senators Barbara Mikulisky and Carol Mosley Braun wore pants on the floor in defiance of the rule, and female support staff soon followed afterwards, with the rule being amended later that year by the Senate. Sergeant at Arms Martha Pope to allow women to wear pants on the floor, so long as they also wore a jacket. That's good.
Okay.
So pantsuits.
Pantsuits.
June 1993, Kay Bailey Hutchinson won a special election in Texas and joined Kassebaum as a fellow Republican senator, female Republican senator. So I'm not fully ignoring the right here. I'm just letting you know. These additions significantly diminished the popular perception of the Senate as an exclusive boys' club. And yeah, my cat is chiming in randomly as well. So
Snoring.
Olympia Snow arrived.
I don't know if you can hear my cat snoring, but my cat is snoring. So anyway, go ahead.
Olympia Snow arrived in the Senate in 1995, having previously served in the House of Representatives and both the House of Maine state legislator. She and Debbie Stabnon of Michigan and Christine Sineman of Arizona are the only women to have served in both houses of the state legislature and both houses of the federal legislature. Which, cool. Let's see. Joanne Emerson re-entered the House of Representatives in 1997 as the first and only woman elected as neither a Democrat nor a Republican from any state to either chamber of Congress. Initially, she was specifically elected as a Republican late in the 104 Congress before leaving the party for a while to run unaffiliated in the 1996 election and rejoin the Republicans in the early 105th Congress. But that's still pretty cool. Also, was 96 Ross Perot? I'm getting fuzzy on my timelines here, but I remember it being a big deal because it was like the first time a third party seemed like they actually had a chance. But that might have been 92. But anyway, Tammy Baldwin entered the U.S. House of Representatives in 1999 as the first openly gay woman in either chamber of Congress. In 2000, Stabenow and Marie Cantwell became the first women to defeat incumbent elected senators in a general election. And then Hillary Clinton is the first and only First Lady to run for and win a Senate seat. Clinton joined the Senate in 2001, served until 2009 when she resigned and became the 67th United States Secretary of State under Barack Obama, and became the first woman to receive a major party's national nomination for president in 2016. We all know, hopefully. Nancy Pelosi became the first female House Minority Whip in 2002. Wow. She went on to become the first and only to date female Speaker of the House of Representatives in 2007. Also in 2007, Mazi Hirono entered the U.S. House of Representatives as the first female Buddhist in either chamber of Congress. Hey guys, it's our differences that make us stronger and awesome. In 2008, Kay Hagan became the first woman to unseat a female incumbent, Elizabeth Dole. And in 2011, the U.S. House of Representatives got its first women's bathroom near the chamber. Yay!
Yay! When? What?
2011.
Oh boy.
I was just looking
Actually, near the chamber as opposed to having to go. Did anybody else watch? Was the movie
Hidden
about
Figures?
scientists?
Huh?
But it was a movie about the NASA scientists,
Hidden
uh,
figures.
hidden figures. Yeah,
Yeah,
but like
that's
there's
what I
this
thought of when you mentioned the restroom stuff earlier. I was like,
because she had to go to the
that
segregated
happened in the
bathroom.
60s. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Didn't learn
Uh,
anything from it anywhere else. Just NASA.
So Barbara Molesky became the longest serving woman senator in Congress in 2012. She did retire in 2017 and is still considered the longest serving for 40 years. So that's pretty awesome. In 2012, there's the second Year of Women with the election of 5 women and the re-election of 6. This beat the previous record of the in 1992 that we talked about earlier. The 5 new women were Democrat Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin, Republican Deb Fisher of Nebraska, Democrat Heidi Henkemp of North Dakota, Democrat Mazie Hirona of Hawaii, and Democrat Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. The driving force behind the addition of the 4 senators elected was Patty Murray herself, who was elected in 1992, who led the Democratic senatorial campaign to recruit Baldwin, Hintkemp, Herno, and Warren, along with several other competitive candidates. Let's see. Hirono was the first Asian American woman, first Buddhist person in the Senate, and Baldwin was the first gay person in the Senate. I skipped ahead about that. Right. And finally, we're on the last page.
Yeah, we gotta be wrapping up soon, honey.
I got it. This is the last page. Tulsi Gabbard entered the U.S. House of Representatives 2013, first Hindu person in either chamber. Also 2013, Christine Steinman entered the House of Representatives, first openly bisexual woman in either chamber. Joni Ernest became the first female combat veteran to serve in the Senate when she joined in 2015. Catherine Cortez Mascot, elected in 2016, was first Latin senator. And in June 2016 primary election, as a result of California's recent establishment of top two primaries, California Attorney General Kamala Harris and U.S. Representative Loretta Sanchez became the first women of the same party to advance a Senate general election. And in November 2016, Harris became the first woman to defeat a woman of the same party in the Senate general election. And she is now, of course, the first woman senator to be a vice president nominee. Uh, yeah. So Janine Shireen of New Hampshire and Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire hold the distinction of being the first and second woman elected both governor and senator of a state. Both served as the governor of New Hampshire and served together in the Senate until 2017. 2017, Tammy Duckworth became first female double amputee in the U.S. Senate and gave birth to her daughter during the first incumbent senator, becoming the first incumbent senator to give birth. Shortly afterwards, rules were changed so the senator had the right to bring a child that was under 1 year old onto the Senate floor so they could breastfeed them during the vote. The day after those rules were changed, Malia, her daughter, became the first baby on the Senate floor when Tammy brought her on.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, I like that one. In 2018 general elections, there was a wave of first elected to the United States of House of Representatives. Record-breaking 103 women were elected to or re-elected into the U.S. House of Representatives, calling it again the Year of Women.
I think it's slightly more earned this time, maybe.
That's 3 years of women, in case people were counting.
Yeah, if anyone is keeping track, don't just believe mission accomplished banners when you see them, and don't just take the cookie. Show up. Keep voting. Keep running.
Yes. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib became the first Muslim women ever elected to either House of Congress, with Tlaib being the first Palestinian American woman elected to Congress and Omar being the first Somali American of either sex to be elected. Angie Craig became the first lesbian mother elected to Congress. Sharice Davis and Deb Haaland became the first Native American women elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. And in 2018, Kristen Sinema defeated Martha McSally to become Arizona's first female senator and first openly bisexual senator from any state. And that is how it stands. As 2018.
Moment. It's
Yeah.
it's in brief, 100 years.
It has been 100 years of progress and women making their way up to the political ranks by teeth and claw.
Yep.
But it's important.
Like 1964, and we still haven't been able to get equal representation under the law. So that's a little nuts.
Yep. So yeah. You don't ever think that your vote doesn't count. It counts. If you can do it, vote. If you can help people vote, do it. I promise. It's a good thing. All right. So what are you girls most anticipating right now?
I am gonna be running another D&D card captors session. After I scared the crap out of my players by having them almost all get possessed by ghosts. Moving on to it. They're gonna just have just kind of a knockdown drag out fight, maybe, this next session. We'll see. They've surprised me before. They're like, let's take a left turn at Albuquerque, and I'm like, all right, give me a second. Let me figure out where you're going, and I'll make something appear.
They'll do that every time.
Like a randomly generate. I have to be a randomly generated like video game every time, because I'm just like, I just have a random encounter just there on the back, just waiting. And hopefully maybe actually finishing one of my Bulbasaurs. That would be nice. I'm leaning towards the fall one, because I've got it mostly finished, sort of. And my fall, okay, this is so many F's. My fall FabFitFun box is coming on Thursday, apparently. So I shall have more expensive, fun, makeup-y things to play with. So that should be entertaining. We'll see, because like I got to pick some things, but they also like throw some things in. So we'll see what I get.
Woo, yay. Are you doing unboxing?
I did one like without really meaning to. The last box came on a Wednesday, so I did one for my D&D players just because I had it. And I was like, my box! Look, I got this and I got this, and they were just very patient with me as we were waiting to get the game started. So I don't know.
Well, let me see. I'm going to be continuing to set up more streaming stuff. I'm going to have to fart around, obviously, with the audio a little more and tweak it, hopefully, to an ideal situation, since I had to completely reformat. Well, not format, but like factory reset my machine, including moving Adobe permissions. I think I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity. It's not an inconvenience, it's an opportunity. To switch that over to the PC. So if our show's a day late, it's because I'm having to screw with all that before I can do the editing and do the editing in the PC version instead of the Mac version, which I am not used to, and I'm sure I will just be trying not to hate the whole time. So Saturday we're having a fire party, which I'm like, it's a mini Dionysia. Normally I would be camping in the woods with my friends from back home. I haven't been able to actually go to that for years and years, but with Matthew passing, I've had a lot more contact with, I would have had to have gone this year, and COVID. So a lot of us are doing our remote thing where whether it's you can light some candles in your apartment or you can have your own fire in your yard. We're all having a thing on Saturday and then going out and howling at the moon at midnight in places all over the country. And I invited just a handful of my kind of local new tribe to come over for that. And hopefully I will be hearing back soon about the position I applied for. I was going to mention this earlier, and I'm gonna have to talk to you girls about it. Because the hours might be nuts if I get this. I've applied for a digital campaign coordinator position with the coordinated campaign, which is basically the DNC. And there's a whole lot of, I was recommended, I had a friend call me and like, hey, they're looking for people and I didn't want to recommend you without your permission. And I know you don't work for free and it's good money or I wouldn't have brought it up. And you have all these skills and, you know, you can do this job. I'm like, okay. I don't feel incredibly confident about how the interview went. I felt a little scatterbrained. I haven't had to interview for a job in probably 25 years. Anything I've done, I've run for office. I've run for all kinds of stuff. I've basically hired people. I've trained people. But all the paid gigs I've had for the last like 10 years have been just, hey, do you want to come do this for us? Because people knew I had these skills. And instead I had a Zoom interview with somebody who was probably 20 years younger than me and maybe was not as adept and confident about this whole new world, because campaigning, the Biden-Harris campaign is completely remote. They're not doing door to door. They're not touching people. They're not like, everything's being done from home digitally by everyone. So it's exciting and it's interesting, and I have the skills, and the software I don't know I can learn quick, because I've learned all of it. I have forced older folks who didn't want to leave their home to make calls before to learn Slack and Discord and stuff. So hopefully I get it. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I wasn't told when I would hear. So
We'll give you good energy.
Good energy. If anything, I mean, if hopefully I could say like, listen, I need an hour and a half, like Monday nights, period. And it's likely it'll be a lot of nights and weekends in general. But if we got to move things around, we got to move things around. If one of you will, I know you both stream and are capable of it. If we can get you guys a different scene set up so that you guys can do it without me if you need to, and I can get a night off producing now and again, you know, that's what we'll do. But I'm not going anywhere for good. This is there's like 100 days to the election. Like there's been 100 years that three of us could have voted. And then I'll be back even if I get it. So, fingers crossed. What about you, Ray?
So I'm just going to continue working on the sketch today during the work week, because I do like that. You know, since instead of doing exercises on my lunch break, I just draw. But as I'm trying to get better at that, that's better. And I got my shiny application to vote by mail.
Yeah.
So I'm filling that out and sending that in. And if you can vote by mail, I also advise you to do the same, because that's going to be the safest way to get your vote in.
And if you're worried about the mail service, you can actually take your mail-in ballot, and there are places where you can drop it off.
Yep.
If you're worried about the mail system.
And the fantastic thing about absentee voting is it's actually one of the most verifiable ones, because you can go and look at your voter registration on your Board of Elections website, and you can see they got it. It's processed.
Yep.
We did it for the primary earlier in the year, so it's like, oh yeah, we'll just do it again. It'll be fine.
Yep, we did too.
Now remember, folks, you can always come watch us record live at twitch.tv/geekgrills on most Monday evenings. Our next one will be August 31st from 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about some of our favorite magical creatures, with Linda hosting, I believe.
I think that's correct.
I mean, it's my turn, but it was your idea.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. But that's what we're going to talk about.
So in addition to the subs and bits that we get on Twitch, we're also supported by our amazing patrons who are the greatest girlfriends on the internet. And you can become a patron at www.patreon.com/girls. And don't forget, if you have Amazon Prime, you can sub to us for free every month on Twitch.
And another way to show your support is by leaving us a review. You can do so on any of your podcast catchers. Leaving a review is free, and they help our ranking, which helps other people find us, which is great. Also, you can join our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter if you'd like to help spread the word.
All right. And where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitch and Instagram under the name madcap_miss, that's MISC as miscellaneous.
And I can be reached at 9 of 12. That's NINAOF12 on Twitter and Twitch. And you can hear me on the Heresy and Hearsay podcast.
And you can find me on Instagram under Dappeldane and on Twitch as Ray Ino, REIAINO. Thank you everyone for listening, and hopefully we'll be able to celebrate another 100 years soon. Good game!
Good game!
Diamond Clubs, you enjoyed this program.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Did 5 pages.
We did 5 pages. That was impressive.
Yeah. Wow.
That was significantly shorter than the Sailor Moon one, too.
Oh no,
Justin is on.
It didn't clear out the Nightbot. Or Showbot, sorry.
What?
Showbot didn't clear. It's okay. I know what I'm voting for.
I totally cleared it. No, I guess I did.
It's history time with Ray.
Okay. I'm cool with that. We're going to raid Justin. Because we just talked all them politics. He's doing RNC coverage.
Black and white.